Hello friends, and welcome back to Enterprise Architecture. Now, last episode we completed the factory you see in front of us. This handles our computer manufacturing and our heavy frame manufacturing. And that means we are finally ready, to unlock the milestone of building trains. You can see I've already set that up in the top right corner as our next milestone, so we can set up our first little mini train network today. I think the focus of that is going to be dealing with our plastic resources and getting that moved around the map. Now, before we dive into that, I wanted to talk through a couple of things real quick. First and foremost, Satisfactory 1.0. That release is coming up here in September. That's less than 2 months away, folks. That means major things for our builds. First and foremost, we have to take into account the fact that most of our mods, or at least a large number of mods, will probably stop working. And since this is a modded Satisfactory playthrough, that kind of puts a damper on things for us now, doesn't it? We're going to have to wait until many of the mods are updated for 1.0 before we can play those again. The other side of that issue is that Steam forces us to update. When the new version comes out, we are going to have to download it. We're not going to be presented with an option. I guess I can try disconnecting from the internet and playing through that way for a while. I'm going to do that for a little bit, but it does mean we will have some time where we probably will not be able to play modded Satisfactory. Now, as far as this stream goes, I don't know if I'm going to scrap my entire factory we've been building here. We're about a dozen episodes in now, and I wouldn't feel bad about starting over, but I do feel like we've just only barely scratched the surface here with what we've been trying to build. I wish I had done what Flexo has been doing. I just stopped by his stream this past week and checked out his builds. He's actually building just the bases. He's not building any factory machinery. That to me always seemed like counterintuitive because I fill my factories with machines, and the machines are actually a big part of what I'm building, but his version I think makes a lot of sense. It's just laying out the foundations of these factory spaces and then filling them with machines later. We didn't do that. We built around what is here, and so yeah, things are going to change for us, and there's a lot of infrastructure changes we need to make. The only other thing I want to mention is thanks again for continuing to like and subscribe to this channel. If you do like this content, please do remember to click the like button below. It makes a huge impact on things for me. It makes more people able to see my videos, and I can really see the difference in the numbers when y'all do that. Again, I'm not doing this for the numbers. I'm doing it because I love playing Satisfactory and Minecraft and other games like this. So I'm just happy that y'all are along for the ride with me. But if you do click that button, it is awfully nice. It makes me feel good and lets other people see my content. So please do remember to do that if you like what we're doing here. If you don't like what we're doing here, I guess leave me a comment and tell me why you don't like what we're doing here. But that's also cool too. Anyways, no further ado today, let's dive right in. Alright, so we're back here at our starter base, and we now have all the last ingredients we need for monorail train technology. And there we go. We can... Oh yeah, all of those great notices. We can start building out our train network now. While we're here, we're also going to unlock Logistics Mark IV. This is going to be critical because we do need those Tier 4 belts to proceed. Otherwise, nothing is going to move fast enough. And here we are back at our plastics factory. You all probably remember this build. This is one of the ones that actually was really popular. I'm surprised how many people actually ended up liking and following me as a result of this build. I think this is a really, really cool one. And I think that what we're going to do here is, right now we have all of the oil coming out here, but all of the actual plastic is just being stored inside here. So I think we are going to run our logistics out this way and build a train platform that hovers over top of all of this. And then that train network will then go back up and around and out to our main base over in that direction. So I don't want it to go any higher up in the water because I think that then it'll start to feel a little weird and that it'll be kind of dwarfing the other platform. And that's not the intention. We want the train station to kind of fit in naturally as part of this. So let's start by putting down some freight platforms here. I think we want everything to be aligned on that side. I've been thinking about this a little bit. And I think what I'd like to do is do sort of another one of those designs with the slats that I had done previously here. To that end, I think we are going to go to Structural Solutions and use the half size blocks because I think that those will look a little better here for us. They're being half as thin and not so chunky because this is going to be as big of a platform as we normally would be making. So let's go ahead and zoop some of these into place. And really what I want to do here is probably bulk build these. There we go. And maybe we do another set of 10 on top of those sets of 10. And now I'm going to go back through and remove every other one. And this is relatively tedious. This is another one where probably using a blueprint would make more sense than just doing it manually. Alright, so I've been playing with the slat wall a little bit further here. I went with the full meter slats instead here, and I also started playing with these double ramps to kind of give it a little bit more visual interest. I got kind of bored with just the straight lines and thought some diagonals might work. Now I haven't decided if it looks better with the diagonals going down on each side or up on each side, or if I want to do it so that it goes down and then back up. But I'm going to play with this a little bit more and see where we land. Okay, so this is slowly starting to come together for us. I still haven't decided if I want to outset these blocks or inset these blocks to kind of break up the space even a little bit more, but I think we're getting there. Now, I do want a little bit more decoration here, and I do like the notion of having a roof that drops down. Alright, so this is starting to come together. We still need to give it a little bit more texture and decoration, but generally it's starting to be framed out where we want it here. I added some painted beams here just to give it a little bit more depth and texture, but I also think I want to add some label signs up the side of this. I think this could look really good right here as a detail element. And let's see, that top one just needs to be 2 meters, so let's do a short one there. Then we're going to go ahead and paint these to match. Let's go ahead and load that light blue again. There we go. Of course, we're going to do the normal thing here. And maybe let's do a couple of more of these. I think that this could look even better if it was being repeated. So let's see if we can get this to line up there. Let's do right here. Just like this. Come on. Come on, there we go. Remove that one, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side here. Perfect. So I think this is going to be our finished design for our train station. Now, this is expandable in both directions if we wanted to. Not in the current form that I've made this blueprint for, but I could cut this blueprint into pieces and very easily scale this out so that the edges can grow. You can see here we can tile this in both directions with no problem. The same pattern will repeat, and we can actually go about, I don't know, 4 more foundations over, make it a very, very long platform, and these edges will still work very nicely. It just won't be a dramatic drop off here. It'll just be a smooth surface that goes down, a smooth curve. So I think that'll work really well for us. I've done a whole lot of lighted signs in here, as you can see, and I do have the actual name of the station peeking out in addition to some lighting there. On the inside, I've added both skylights and also some lighted panels for illumination in here, just so you have both options depending on where you put it. And I do have these light stripes down the side and the nice little catwalk walkway so you can get up and look down on the platform. And some nice little signs in here that you're going to want to update with your station name or whatever other information you want to put on it once you decide what you're going to call it. So then we have our fixed lighted sign on the back, of course, to round it out. And we are just going to put this down, let's say somewhere over here. So that's the front of the station. We actually want it to sync up right against that platform edge if we can. So we're just going to hold this into place. Now, one thing to note is that the actual outputs are currently routed on the bottom of this. You can see them over there. So this is going to be a little bit tricky with regard to routing our ingredients into it. So we are going to have to turn on no clipping mode and go underground for this. I don't love that aspect, but I couldn't think of a better way to handle it. And slowly but surely this will get built. And I like that the big factories get the noise of the space elevator, that big clunk when you're doing that many pieces. I really love that. It's a nice little detail. So now we need to connect these up. We can remove this foundation real quick, and we're just going to run some platforms over this way. We're also going to go ahead and turn off clipping mode. Or turn on no clipping mode, I guess I should say. And then we need to run our ingredients down under the water here. So let's grab our conveyor lift Mark IV and point this in the direction of our facility, which is actually away from us here because I did have to switch the sides on this. So we're gonna just point this right here. There we go. And then same thing here on the left side. We're gonna turn this around and bring it in there. So to belt this up, I do want to use our ceiling mounts here. I think those are going to be the most elegant way of getting the ingredients around, but I do want these belts to sit a little higher here. So we are just going to take those and we are going to move them up one tick. And then actually one tick is going to be a little too high because that's going to clip through the foundation. So then we just go down a tiny tick. There we go. And then we just repeat that process. Now we grab our Mark IV belts and we connect this up. So there's an output there. We're going to put this right here on this one. The second output we are going to run right through these rocks and put right here. There we go. And now these are just going to float a little bit over the water, and I think that looks really neat. I can totally live with that. All right, since we are using Aquila's double wall storage containers, we have 2 inputs and 2 outputs on a single box. And that means that I went ahead and doubled up our spaghetti belts here so that this would load even quicker. And now we have completely filled this with all of the rubber and plastic that we had made. That means that now it's time to build our train line to go in and out of here. So I think how I'm going to lay this out is going to be a double rail line and not a single rail line. I think that'll be the most efficient way to do this. And so I think I'm going to have this connect in a loop out maybe over on this side. So let's just go out this way a little bit here. Yeah, right through that storage container is absolutely fine. Just like that, and these will actually meet up over here. All right, so I'm starting to carve out the arcs here a little bit. I'm okay with this clipping through the ground a little bit. I think that looks not bad, and honestly, you're gonna find some train tracks that are already gonna be grown through the ground in real life sometimes too. This is a little more extreme than I wanted, and if I had this to do over again, I would go everything up by one foundation, but I'm gonna live with this, and it's just gonna be okay. So this is going to be our rail line in. We have a nice little curve here, 3 foundations by 3 foundations to come out. And then this will then be able to wrap back around into these platforms here. All right, there we go. I think I've got this all laid out properly now with all of those connecting up nicely. And I do like that this also connects back on both sides this way, right through the middle. That looks really nice and neat. So with this section complete, I'm relatively happy with this. I don't love how these curves turned out exactly. I probably will come back and redo these later, but we're just trying to get the basics of our network set up. But we do have this sort of laid out the way that we want it. Now I'm turning my attention to what's going to connect these across the rest of the world here. And so I've been playing a little bit with how I can make a little train platformy thing that we can run all around our space, because I want this to be an elevated railway for the most part. And now that I think about it, I might go ahead and even bump this up a little bit higher off the ground than it already is, maybe at least 1 foundation, because it's not really blocking the view so much over there. So this will allow us to do that. We have these large pillars underneath here that are basically just made from inverted quarter pipes and then 1/2 meter foundations. And then I've been thinking about what sort of textures I'd want to combine here to make this really work. So these are nice and wide so that we can have extra walkways underneath if we want. We can have another set of maybe transit through the middle even. We could make our pipes go underneath or conveyor belts. I wanted this to have a lot of flexibility. So I just started tinkering with this about 15 minutes ago and started playing around with the design a little bit. I think I'm getting close. I think having not all of it covered with billboards, number one, is going to help with our FPS. But moreover, it also means that we'll get that nice effect when you're going through here of the flickering lights, which I always like in tunnels. I think that actually looks kind of cool, so that it's going to be strobing as we go through, rather than just a continuous line of light. I also think pragmatically, like, if you're doing this out in the middle of nowhere, generally when you're building train lines, you're not adding lights all over the place just to have them. So, you know, like in subways, you're not going to see lots of these underneath, just sporadically. And I think the other thing I'd like to do potentially here is to actually make this even taller. And I think if this were wider, it could look even better if it were, or at least if I'm making it taller, I think it would look better wider, because now we have this like weird narrow corridor, which I don't love. But let's play with this for a second and just kind of see where we land. I think I want these roof flats, rather than being at that same width, we bring these in just about there. Let's go ahead and zoop a whole row of these down like so, and then we're going to reverse them on the other side. And then let's start playing with these as an angle down off of this side. I think that's starting to get us into the ballpark. Now, these, I had played with the glass. I don't hate the glass, I have to admit, but I do think that potentially this just looks better with just the standard fix-it roofs. It gives us a little bit more color, and again, we don't have to use so much glass everywhere. So I've also been playing with having these basic walls for coloring. So if I hold this in place, I can bring it down one notch, and that's going to sit right underneath there. And I'm also putting another row of these along the edge of the platform. Now, I know not everybody's going to agree with this decision, but I kind of like the refined power solar roof version of this a lot better than I like just the plain white with the orange stripe. I'm going to go ahead and save both of these as separate blueprints. So anybody that wants to play the vanilla game can use this design here. So that will be available to you. But I think for my build, I'm going to do the solar roof. And I think the reason why I really want to do the solar roof is I love the notion of this having all of our infrastructure contained in a single package. This means we can do rail, we can do ingredients through pipes, we can do belts, we can do walkways, we can still have a little road here to drive along if we want, depending on how we want to change this up. And also we are getting power from all of this extra infrastructure. This is actually a really efficient way of building things, is having your solar power over your infrastructure. So I think that's actually what I'm going to do here. But like I said, I will save both versions, and then you all will have the option to download both of those as separate blueprints, depending on if you're playing modded or not. And yeah, this is super awkward to build. I just want these to connect nicely, but that's not a thing that we're going to get here. Let's see here. Scooch this over there and then down. And that gives us our covered rail. And now we're just going to want to repeat this a few more times. I think I'm going to do like 2 or 3 of these up over these gas pillars. And then probably we'll switch back into the regular one so we can make a nice little curve here. The train line is now mostly complete, coming all the way back through here to our main base. The main thing that remains at this point is to set up our platform for offloading our plastic and rubber into this general storage system that we've built. Now, I will admit this place is kind of a mess right now. We need to do some significant cleanup, but that's not all going to happen today. Instead, we're just going to build out a platform for offloading our plastic and rubber here into the system, and then we're going to belt that all the way back over to our manufacturers where we're building our heavy frames and our computers. So we're going to get that set up real quick here. But first things first, the offloading platform. Now, I do want to do something that's clever enough that we can continue to expand it if we need to in the future. I'm not going to use the exact same design that we already have for our other train station, the one that we've got the lovely blueprints for. I'm going to do something custom and bespoke here instead. Alright, so I'm relatively confident that those rocks are not going to conflict and knock the train off the road. I think we'll be able to pass through that with no trouble, and we should be able to scooch right over top of the downed drop pod as well without any issue. So now we can go ahead and build our little train station right here in this area. Let's hold that right there. I think that's going to be exactly the right spot for it. Let's say that that's there. Then the 2 train freight platforms need to butt into that, and so I think that means, yeah, that they're going to be on this side. There we go. And that actually, that works pretty well. Without too much work, we seem to have lined that up very, very nicely here. We're off by a part of a foundation, but not enough that it really bothers me, so I can totally live with that. There we go. That's starting to look pretty sharp here. All right, can live with that. I don't know how I feel about this side one here. I kind of feel like I want to match this railing here to it so that these both kind of like pop in and has these like long pillars coming out the front. I think that could be a good design element. So maybe I will pull these off real quick here. So this is already starting to mimic a little bit our steel factory behind us, and I think I want to play with that and encourage it a little bit in this design. I also want to plan for the fact that this train station might need to get a lot longer at some point in the future as we're bringing in more plastic, so we do need to be able to plan for future expansion here. But I think having some like diagonal pillars coming down like those have could be a nice way of merging these two design elements together, something nice and chunky. Yeah, something like this maybe. This could work very well for us here as sort of a bit of a design element like that. And then we could have like pillars coming right off of here if we wanted. So like down this way or something. Yeah, so from there we can grab the 4-meter foundations, sink those like right through, maybe? Like that? It's a little too far out, I feel like. It's interesting, but it doesn't have that wide stance of the other one. So I think we have one less set of these that we're going to want to put in. I think that's going to do it. I think we do something like this instead. Like replace this bottom edge of these with the concrete foundations like this, right? And then come down from that. I think that gets us closer into the ballpark here. We could even put like crosswise pieces in if we wanted, something like this, somehow. Something like this, or like this. Whatever we want to do with it a little bit to give it a little bit more texture. You know, that's starting to be something there. We can do a couple of those if we wanted, maybe here. There. That's starting to look like something. Okay, we're going to play with this a little bit more here, and I think we're going to bring these pillars up. So let's actually not do double ramps on the bottom. Let's do inverted ramps on the bottom here. Where are my inverted ramps? None of the inverted ramps are here. Here are the inverted ramps, right? Yeah, okay. Let's put this here, and then this can build off the top of that. Now, I think these look a lot better if they come up further, so that we start to have these other outside pillars, this sort of a superstructure around it. I think that looks kind of nice. Yeah, this could definitely work. Oh, and we should mimic these on the front too, right? Something like that. Yeah, because this eventually is going to have to loop back around on itself into that end, so we do need to plan that there's an outlet coming off of here that's going to be another set of something. And I guess this whole scaffolding could hold that as sort of a suspended platform. That might be the way to do this. So now this is starting to come together a little bit. I framed this out a little bit further. I doubled up on these ramps so that we have double ramps, which I think is starting to make this look nice and chunky in a way I think that works really well for us. Now we do need to cap off the top here in some way. I think I'm going to leave part of this open like we currently have it. I do need to figure out something to do though with this sort of floating platform. And to that end, I think I might go ahead and start looking at maybe using some of our beams here. Maybe the metal pillars I think could be an elegant choice here that could kind of flow across this gap rather nicely. Let's just try this a little bit and see how it looks. Just a little bit of offset there to kind of give it some interest and texture. And now as this platform starts to curve around here, I think I might want to do something a little different with it. Honestly, I think maybe instead of 1 meter, I think I should replace these with 2-meter foundations because I think that's going to look just a little bit better with the width of those pillars here. So make it look nice and chunky. So give me that asphalt foundation there and give me the 2-meter version. We're going to hold that in place. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Unhold, and let's make sure it's right level there. And we're going to go out with this 1 extra foundation there. Yeah, those are going to be flush then. Okay, great. And then from that, we're going to want to wrap this around like I was mentioning. I think I'm going to make it so it's sort of hanging off the bottom of this with some sort of a cable suspension looking thing. And then that's going to tuck back around here and into the original train route. That's how we're going to do this. All right, we made some significant progress in adding the rows of our colored trim around this, and also building out the rest of this ramp where it comes out of our factory and back down into the outlet that's going to go back to the main branch over there, the plastic factory, all the way on the other side of the map. So this is mostly there. I still want some sort of a detail going on with the top of this, and I think we can probably do another set of our ramps here. I think that's probably the way to go with this. If that's sort of kind of what we're aiming for. That's sort of kind of what we're aiming for. Okay, so this is pretty close to being finished. I've added a bunch of vertical pillars here so that this will kind of tie it together and make it feel a little bit more grounded. I still don't love them. I think they're generally the right idea, but I feel like this still isn't quite connected very well. I did make myself enough room on top here that, in theory, whenever I finish this next spur line coming in here, that it can float right on top and I can have another whole train station at the next level above this. I'll just knock out these tops of these pillars and it'll sit nicely on top. So that way we can continue to expand this as we need with an additional train station or 2 or 3 or whatever. And of course we need to add a little bit more signage in here just to make it look like it's an actual Fix-It facility. We do have to follow the design standards of Fix-It Inc. So we need to add, let's see here, one more beam right up in here. And then we want to put a mega billboard on there. So let's grab our large billboard, get it right there on that sign. Or on the post, I should say, and then there we go. Now this is a Fix-It approved facility, and you know it as soon as you get in. All right, that's a good starting point. I think we're gonna go through and add a bunch more little lights in here, little glowy bits, just to kind of bring this together. And actually, maybe, you know what? I think these might look better if we go back to our blue that we've been using everywhere else. I think that's gonna be a very nice touch. So let's just do that in here. Yeah, that already feels better to me. Yeah, much more modern feeling, I think. Okay, so the only other thing I think I might want to do is do a bunch of little colored signs here around some of these bits and pieces, just to kind of bring it together and make it a little more glowy. So like nice 1 meter signs, maybe. Do we even want 2 meter square signs in here? Will that give us a better sense of dimension? That might. Let's try this real quick. Well, after a quick log in and log out, my signs have all reset once again, and now we have these ugly orange squares instead of the glowing blue lights that we had intended. So once again, square signs are no longer fit for purpose. I guess I'm gonna have to remove all of these and replace them with something else. I feel like having those signs not work turned into a happy accident for us, and I had another happy accident when I started replacing them with these long, skinny label signs. I was playing with a couple of different designs with it, and going for the very typical, boring, 3-row, long, horizontal vertical thing that I feel like a lot of people do. And then I started wanting to get a little bit more kooky with it, and I think this actually works really well for us. Kind of gives me that Metroid Prime sort of Chozo Ruins evocative sort of thing that I kind of really dig on. So I think I might carry this forward around the rest of the build. So I'm going to play with these patterns a little bit more and see what I can come up with. Something that can kind of match this foundation in a really nice way, but isn't so labor intensive necessarily to set up. I probably, for instance, won't set these up inside of all of these edges, probably just on the outside I'll do something. And on the front, obviously, I think it looks nice as well. One thing to note in how I'm setting these up, I know a lot of other creators tend to just do these stacked signs directly on top of each other, kind of like this. And the thing I don't like about that is that it gives you a little tiny line in between them that you can particularly see at particular angles from a distance. That's not how I do my signs. I actually overlap them. So when you're actually putting them in place, you just kind of nudge it down a little bit, and then you can kind of overlap those, and then you get a nice smooth edge. The edges of the signs themselves don't show through, so that works real well. So that's what I've done here on all of these. Takes a little bit longer to do, but I think the finished result is well worth it. Okay, so here is our finished offloading station here at our central base. I kind of really love how this turned out with these different lines along the side and the orange striping trim. I was able to bring in a bunch of different design elements that we've reused across a lot of these builds, and I think it works really well for us. This kind of gets into this notion of having a design language when you're building stuff out. You may have already watched some of my fundamentals of design videos that I've posted here. If not, you should definitely check those out. But we're using things like repetition, we're using things like color, and that kind of makes our design feel like it's thematically the same, even between different builds that can be radically different styles, but still give you that same sort of look and feel that makes you know that you're in the same world. This is something I really want to explore a lot more in some of the bigger builds that we'll probably start doing in 1.0, but for now I think this works really well in the landscape that we've set for ourselves here. So I'll probably come back through and make some more tweaks to this design, but for now I really love how this turned out. So we're going to call that the end of this episode of Enterprise Architecture. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye friends!